Like when I was trying to be great at sales, I didn't really read sales books. Like I did, but they always made me feel gross.
But when do I decide, okay, I'm ready to stop suffering? Because suffering to me is the price of admission for anything worth doing.
Is like when to quit, when to move on. Like how long do I give it to see if it's going to work? What I want people to understand is like you have to be the one that forces the innovation on yourself.
If you don't have that, the problem isn't time. It's your behavioral pattern and your discipline doing the same thing and expecting a different result. I wish that I would have heard this before I quit my job.
Welcome to the High Performance Human Podcast, where high achievers learn to master themselves, not just their success. I'm Creighton Bertrand, a certified high performance coach, here to share practical tools to rewire your habits and mindset. If you're ready to move beyond good enough and step into real transformation, you're in the right place. Let's get to work.
All right, guys, today's guest is someone who knows how to build, scale, and exit, but more importantly, how to do it with intention. Justin spent the first decade of his career building Heartland Foods, which he grew to $87 million in gross revenue before its acquisition to a private equity firm in early 2022. That would have been the peak for most. But Justin didn't stop there. He now serves as capital advisory chair at Safe Space Global, is a managing partner at Kearns Capital, a fund manager at Pitch Equity, and also leads as VP of sales at Kearns Marketing, where he helps individuals and businesses monetize their brand and build visibility on social media. From building companies to raising capital to helping others craft influence, Justin is the rare kind of leader who brings both hustle and heart into everything that he touches. And that is why I'm so excited to get Justin to the show to help us figure out how did he do it. Justin, thank you so much for being on the show. I was just saying before we kind of started that it means so much that you took time out of your day. I know you can be doing anything at this moment in time to give us a little bit of your time to get into the mindset and what you've had to do to achieve everything you've had to do. So thank you, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's great to be here. The timing's perfect, actually. I'm heading out on a red eye tonight.
Oh, perfect. So
over to the
we'll try not to
Caribbean.
bore you to put you to sleep before you go out. Maybe we'll give you some energy.
There we go.
Awesome. Well, brother, I want to start with, you've built, you've exited, and now you lead a multi-high-powered roles, so many things that you're doing. But as we're kind of talking, I really want to go beneath that. I want to talk about the suck, realistically. What are the internal battles, the emotional minefields, kind of those moments where you almost broke? Because I believe, and I'd be curious to hear your thoughts, that real success doesn't come without those war stories, correct?
Oh, no doubt. I mean, your ability to suffer and intentionally suffer is literally correlated to where you're going to end up in terms of the good side of the back end of going through those things.
Yeah, I love it. I always talk about you can't have success without sucking. You have to suck to succeed. So let me go deep real quick and you can bring us up from here. But is there a point in your career, or do you feel like you're there right now, that you actually felt that you were fulfilled or that you were finally like good enough?
That's so interesting because I've really been trying to bring that feeling in, because every time you become the thing you once dreamed of, you totally forget that. And you do need to recognize how far you've come, even though we're never, ever going to be where we want to be. But there were definitely moments where I felt like, okay, wow, I actually got here. It didn't last very long, but the biggest one was when I jumped from door-to-door sales and building, a direct sales company, going into the capital raising world, which is a totally different thing. The biggest click for me was working so hard, 80, 90-hour weeks. I would work months at a time with 0 days off to produce a multi six-figure income. And I was like, I'm still not making seven figures. I can't work any harder. When I got to the capital raising game and the same effort produced 10x the results, it was like a huge moment of, wow, all of that frustration, all that low ticket stuff, I needed to do that because that's where my skill set was at the time. and it prepared me to move to the next thing. And that was a huge moment of gratitude where you could look at it and say, wow, I can't believe it took me this long to figure it out. But really, you have to go through that to eventually have that hockey stick moment of success in your life. So it was a huge reflection point of all that grind and frustration actually coming to what I believe to be the fruition of what I wanted.
Would you say on a scale of 1 to 10, like, do you feel fulfilled? I mean, I know multi-million, the stuff that you've sold, the things that you've done and created, like, where do you feel on a scale of 1 to 10, like your level of fulfillment is? Because, you think about that 20-year-old version of you. I know you talked about getting the R8 and all these other stories of like, once I this, then I'll be whatever. So let's start with, where do you feel like you're at on a scale 1 to 10 as far as fulfillment at this moment?
I feel like that scale of 1 to 10 would be different for different categories of
For sure.
fulfillment. But if I blended it all together, I'm going to put it around a 6 or 7.
Wow.
It's because there are certain things in my personal life where I have more gratitude and fulfillment than ever. I have more gratitude and fulfillment than ever for understanding myself and being able to finally be in a 24-hour process of actually enjoying the process instead of dreaming of a destination or an outcome. Like, that's a huge thing that I would want for every high performer who's always living for something in the future. But at the same time, I understand how big the potential is of what I want to create, what's possible, the people in my world, the things we're working on. So from a professional standpoint, I feel like I'm just getting started. And so you blend that all together. I think I don't know, maybe it's more of like an 8, 9, 10 when you really think about it, because it's like, no, there's so much fulfillment in knowing that I'm exactly where I should be, but there's so much more to come.
Yeah. And I feel like that's such a balance. And this is where I love to look at martial arts, because I think a lot of people going into martial arts are committing to mastery. And I love studying sports psychology and studying elite athletes and stuff, because the same tactics they do to be able to push their mind body past what they thought was possible, I feel like we can use that to go get better goals, to push ourselves. Like, I think one of your sayings that I heard you say on another podcast is master the mundane. And so, like, pushing yourself when you don't feel like it. So with a lot of these people that get into martial arts or something like that, they're coming in on the path of mastery. And I think the path of mastery is knowing it's never going to be enough. You're never going to be as good as what's possible, but you're kind of submitting to the process, submitting to the journey of, you know what, I'm going to try like hell and I'm going to do my best to enjoy it, but it's never going to be enough. And it's such a balance to try to find out like where you're at. If I'm in it, I know I can get to wherever your destination is, but I actually really do like where I'm at. Has that always been the case for you as you were climbing your hockey stick?
No, I had a very difficult time with happiness the first, let's say, 10 years of my career. I was doing better than
What ages
everybody.
was that? Sorry.
What was that?
What ages was that, the 10 years that you
I'm going to
were-
say 22, 23 to early 30s was, where, I missed out on a lot of things in my 20s because I was so focused on, building net worth, creating I had this chip on my shoulder of like, I wanted to be so successful. And when you don't have the perspective and skills yet, you think that just working harder is the answer, which at the time it was. In the vehicle I was in, the only thing I could do was work harder, max it out, and then put leverage on it, recruit people to do it. And you start to learn, okay, well, how do I get more for and you have to use leverage. But it was I knew deep down that I was missing something. It's not normal to, have to work 60 days straight for 16 hours to hit an income. It's not. And I saw other people that seemingly had all these other things. They spend so much more time with their families. They're still making millions of dollars and all these things. And I didn't know how, but I knew that eventually I would figure it out. And because I hadn't figured it out yet, I was really upset about it. So that kind of drove me to keep going, but the whole time just seeking, like reading podcasts, like trying to find the information that was going to give me the edge to go figure that out. And it took a long time.
What would you say now that you've actually assumingly done it? What was that quote unquote edge that you were missing?
The edge was something I now call forced innovation. If you're doing the same thing every day and nothing makes you change, nothing's going to change. I was forced to innovate because of a black swan event called a pandemic.
Yeah.
And I saw this with a lot of people that, lost their career, their job, thought the world was coming to an end. Then they find themselves as YouTube stars or like whatever. And now they have an incredible life that they never would have had if they weren't forced into innovation. That's what happened to me when the pandemic blew up our delivery service. I mean, everybody wanted delivery in the pandemic. The company explodes and then we sell it to a private equity firm. And it was like, oh my God, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? I had to go figure it out with that mindset and principles that I had been building and the skills. And I was able to go figure out how to translate that into the next phase of life. But it never would have happened if I wasn't forced into it. So now it's like, what I want people to understand is like, you have to be the one that forces the innovation on yourself.
Do you think that there was any way between, let's go back to 20 and 30, when you were struggling, you were missing something? Do you know what that something was? Was this what you're talking about, the forced integration, or?
Yeah. I mean, this is, I think, the hardest thing to figure out is like when to quit, when to move on. Like, how long do I give it to see if it's going to work?
So what's please tell me, because I was a aerospace engineer for 13 years, and then I got into real estate investing. But for me, that was the hardest thing, to quit engineering to do what I do now, which is the coaching, because the money was good, it was safe, it was secure, it provided benefits for my family on paper, especially as an engineer. Logically, it made perfect sense, but emotionally, it was draining my soul and I hated it. How do you help people if they come to you say, hey, Justin, like, I'm doing this thing, and I'll talk about myself, I'm really good at suffering. Like, I'm good at going to the gym, I'm good at pushing myself, I'm doing at miserable things, so I can do this forever. But when do I decide, okay, I'm ready to stop suffering? Because like we're talking at the beginning, suffering to me is the price of admission for anything worth doing.
100%. So what I should have done, instead of pushing myself to the max, I should have looked at what's the potential of this vehicle. No one's ever made more than $300,000 a year selling the door-to-door product I was selling, right? I'm the guy who set that record, right? So it's like, I was so focused on setting that record and maxing out the potential of that vehicle that it took all of my time, instead of saying, hey, this is a great vehicle. I can make 150, 200 grand a year, take care of my family, whatever, instead of trying to max out a vehicle that doesn't have that massive potential. Cool, keep doing it, keep the stability. And then instead of maxing out the effort there, like, what am I doing with the rest of my time? Trying new things underneath of that vehicle, because you're going to need the capacity and efficiency to do both anyways. Like, when you're in transition, there will be periods of your life where you are going to have to be all out at a level that most people can't understand. And when that calling happens, when that time comes, you need to be prepared to do that. So if you can't work your 9 to 5 and build a side hustle on top of it, like, essentially, if you can't work 2 9 to 5s, I don't think you should try to be an entrepreneur of any kind. You just won't be able to. So that's what I would say, is like, don't try harder at the thing you're doing. Just let that sustain your life. Like, keep the stress level to a minimum. Some people are like, burn the boats, go all in. Like, I'm not that guy. I don't believe in that at all.
I see so many entrepreneurs that come to me that they're like, all right, Creighton, like, I'm ready to go all in. I'm going to quit my 9 to 5. It's holding me back. And I mean, maybe I'm not the right coach for most people. I'm like, have you earned the right to quit yet? Because in their mind, they're like, my job's holding me back and I don't have time. And I'm like, cool, let me see your schedule. And they're like, okay, I get done with my job and then I do nothing. But if I didn't have my job, Creighton, I'd have that. And so I love that you say that, because I tell them, because I've coached so many people that will leave their job, but they haven't built the behavioral pattern or the skill set of how to be disciplined with their time yet. And if you don't have that, the problem isn't time. It's your behavioral pattern and your discipline, that as soon as you have more time, you're just going to have more time that you do absolutely nothing. And that's what they do time and time again. So I couldn't agree with you anymore that if you aren't succeeding with your 9 to 5, it's not waiting for you on the other side.
There's just 2 things I want to add to that I thought of. Number one, do you have $100,000 sitting in cash that you can leave your job and start working on this thing? Or are you going to be able to invest in the marketing or whatever needs to be done to build this business? Because you're about to give away the engine that can fuel your next thing. Like that's just doesn't make sense to me. And then the other piece of this, if you're a W-2 person, you can start a business for free. And the reason I say that, like you can invest in your business for free. Like the government is withholding money out of your W-2 paycheck. You go start your LLC, you build your website, you do all these things. You might be 20, 30 grand in the hole. Well, guess what? That flows through on your active income taxes. That's a write-off that you were going to give that money to the government. Keep the W-2. Let the government pay for your startup.
So good. I want to try to stay between 20 and 30 because that seems like where you were really hustling and grinding. What do you think it was that was like the root of your drive? Like, why were you so driven to quote unquote succeed between 20 and 30?
Yeah, I think it's my upbringing. I think it's the fact I just didn't fit in. My parents split up when I was 13. My dad, built monster businesses, lost everything. I'd gone through like all of these things that were, made me feel inferior. Like all my friends from private school went on to go to Ivy League, and I was the one who had to drop out of private school and go to public school. And then I was so angry as a child about that. I felt like my life had been taken from me. So, and it was a total victim mentality, by the way, like total victim mentality. It was actually
did you actually feel that like on a daily basis that you blamed everyone else and you didn't want to take an accountability or responsibility?
100%. 100%. It was the reason why I wouldn't go to class. I almost didn't graduate high school. The only reason why I got into college was because I was a good hockey player and I got into an honors university with a 1.9 GPA because they wanted me on the hockey team. Like that was the only way I got into college. And then, I was in college for 5 years, no degree, failing. There was just nothing for me there. And
where was that drive at that moment then? Like, I mean, obviously you have the ability to drive and hustle, and obviously at hockey too, right? I'm assuming that you were good at practicing, putting in the time. Why was it only for those, but not for school?
I can't put in effort if I don't care. Like I just can't, right?
Yeah.
It's the same reason why if you gave me a salary, I'd be the least productive human on the planet. Because I'm like, wait, you're going to pay me no matter how hard I work? Like I just can't show up. So, like hockey was everything. I practiced harder than anybody and I wanted to be the best. And I got me free college or, whatever you want to say about it. I wasn't genetically gifted enough to go all the way, but this is a perfect example. I was a music major. So
wow,
I got access to this recording studio 24 hours a day. I could have gone in there and done my work, but I saw an opportunity with all the rappers and bands on campus to bring them in after hours, record their music, charge them by the hour, mix and master it. So I'd work all night and I was making money. And I was failing school, but I was the only person that was making money.
Yeah.
And like, that's just how my brain worked. And then eventually I was packing orders, doing deliveries in a warehouse. And I saw what the door-to-door sales guys were making. And I just dove in that summer. And
why not switch to business? Who was your advisor? Who was in your life and seeing you make money and being like, dude, why are we in music? Why are you not doing
I
business?
tried. I switched to business. I switched to econ. I just couldn't sit through it.
That's so fascinating because you just made the statement of, if it's not something I don't want, it's hard for me to do it. So I would imagine with your success that you had with business of hustling and getting people to come record, you've been like, oh my gosh, I really want to make it in business. But there probably was either maybe a belief in whether you were capable of doing it. There was something else that was, even though you wanted it, there was still something that was holding you back.
Yeah, I needed personal development. That's what I needed. And on the other side of that, it's just funny. Like I didn't do it, to get a degree, but then I did go back and read all those books. I could probably pass a Series 7. I'm not even a broker, but I read all those books. But all that happened later on. And I remember the exact moment. It was when I started in door-to-door sales. For whatever reason, I finally picked up this book by Brian Tracy called No Excuses. And I'll never forget when it clicked. I was driving to an appointment. I had to pull over on the side of the road. I broke down crying. I was probably 21, 22 years old. And I was like, holy shit, I've been blaming everyone and everything for my circumstances. It's not my parents' fault. It's not any of these other things. And if I don't own my life moving forward, nothing's ever going to change. And that was the greatest gift that ever happened. And I can't tell you why. I think the pain of change just has to get to a point where the pain of staying the same is worse.
Yeah.
And then you actually start making some changes.
That's crazy that you had that reckoning at 21 at such a young age? Because I mean, I've coached 30, 40, 50-year-old men that they still are blaming everyone else and they don't want to take accountability for anything in their life because it's so much easier, it's so much more convenient because now you have no agency. It's not my fault. It's all this. That's why. So now you don't have to change. You don't. It's like what you were saying. Your definition of insanity. Doing the same thing and expecting a different result. But if I know that I'm the problem, now I have to change. Nah, I don't want that.
Yeah,
That sucks.
that's what I think. When I really break it down, I think if you can become top 1% in anything, doesn't matter what it is, that's I think the prerequisite to really understanding this. And I had done that in two things, right? It was hockey and it was music, right? That was the second hardest music school to get into in the country, and I got in because I was obsessed with music. So I was understanding the principles. It's kind of like with people, like when I coach them, I'm like, like less than 1% of men have abs. Like this is like getting in shape is the most simple thing that anyone can do, but it's really hard.
Yeah.
So it's like, you don't like need to go pro in business or any of this stuff, but like figure out one thing that you can commit to and get top 1% in, and you will learn the principles that will translate into anything you want to do.
100%. That's been my whole, I would say, reckoning or understanding. I've been studying psychology, human behavior, neuroscience, like coming to it as an engineer because there's a moment in my life where I was really depressed, but I was making hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I thought back in then that day, because I did in engineering, I did like a lot of OChem and physiology and anatomy. So I understood the human body and chemistry. So I was like, oh, you know what? I think that there's something broken in my brain. Like, I should be happy. I have hundreds of thousands of dollars. I have a beautiful Brazilian wife. I have a beautiful child. I live a mile from the water. Like, there just must be some chemical imbalance. So that's why I started to study. And the more I studied, was like, oh, there's nothing wrong with me. I'm just a human having a human experience. And going back to what you're talking about, like the principles of having the discipline, like these are behavioral patterns. Like if you can master, I talk about if you can master your mind, body, and emotions, that you're not reactive, that you're choose your response and you choose to take accountability, like you can be unstoppable in anything. Anyone that's successful, this is the skill set that you need.
Yeah, that's the pause stimulus response, right? And if you know these things, it's because you did the research, you read the books. And that's one of the things I did in the early days was like when I was trying to be great at sales, I didn't really read sales books. Like I did, but they always made me feel gross. And I didn't want to, learn word tracks and tactics. It just felt so inauthentic to me. And I think the reason why I was setting all the sales records that still have never been broken in my industry was because I read books about psychology, about communication, about personality styles. And what I realized was I just desperately wanted to be able to connect with people. And I had a deep fear of offending and hurting other people.
Because of your background, you think because of your, I mean, I do a lot of psychology stuff, but do you think that was because of your background as a child that you were hurt, you wanted to protect people from not having to experience what you experienced?
Yeah, and it borders on the like I care too much about what other people think about me, that people pleasing thing that's become
Still to this day, or?
It's definitely an issue for me.
Okay.
That's one of the hardest things for me is I'll sacrifice my own well-being for the benefit of something else or someone else. And that's been something I've been working on a lot is, how do I choose myself in all situations, which is counterproductive to like when you're in sales and you're trying to solve problems and you're willing to take a beating to get something over the finish line. It's different when it affects your mind and body and your mental state. So there's a fine line between being flexible and tolerating bad behavior from other people.
Yeah, but I think there's a way for both. Like I can take care of myself. And by taking care of myself, I love to use the analogy of, putting on your oxygen mask. By me taking care of myself, I'm a better person for everyone else. And my example was I thought I loved my daughter and loved my wife, but until I learned how to love myself, I realized that I had no idea. The amount of love that I was able to give was not even comparable to the love once I was able to start internally and go externally.
Yeah, it's a huge revelation when you start to really do the deep work on yourself and you get to those moments and you face those hard things. and you start to realize that, like you, it's not that you're loving someone else. You just love the person you're becoming with them. All of these principles that are just light bulbs that come from just doing deep work.
Yeah, and I think for me, because I love sales, I sold cars in between when I was an engineer. So on the summers, I go sell cars, sold Cutco, all these things. That studying the psychology was always just so fascinating to me. And I think going from my childhood background was all about I didn't feel like I was seen, heard, I wasn't enough, and so I didn't feel loved. And so the more work I did on myself, I feel like it allowed me to have so much more compassion and understanding towards other people. Would you agree that that's one of the benefits of the psychology, all the work that the self-care stuff that you've done? How do you feel like that's made an impact for you?
Oh, it's huge. There's nothing more rewarding than being able to help someone else with something that you've been able to get through. It's I think the principle is,
Pause. Wait, you're saying that there's nothing more rewarding than having a purpose bigger than self compared to someone that's made a decent amount of money. The R8 wasn't better than helping someone?
oh, no way. I mean, when you get a DM from somebody saying, "Hey, like this reel caused this, and I went and did this, you changed my life," like it's just unbelievable. And I don't do a ton of coaching, but every now and then I'll take on a few one-on-one coaching clients, and to have them, tear up and get, these big monumental changes because of their interaction with you, it's almost addicting. Now it's like, God, all I want to do is just pour into other people and just help as many people as possible.
Amen. I mean, that's kind of how mine came to be. I was helping people for real estate because I was doing real estate investing, and then I was like getting them the success, but then I'd be like, "Hey, how's your stuff with your wife?" And my wife and I almost got a divorce about 7 years ago, but we did the work, and now I get to help people. And they're like, "Oh, my wife and I are fighting." I'm like, "Hey, would you like help?" I'm like, "Yeah." And so I started to help people with getting to the root of them and all this stuff. And once I did that, I was like, I don't even care about the real estate anymore. Like the problem isn't money, the problem is you. And as soon as we fix that, and like you're talking about, fix the communication, your identity, like your life totally changes.
Yeah, no doubt.
So, what do you think it is while you were going again back to the 20s and 30s, and maybe it's different now where you're at? What, 34 now? Is that
38.
yeah. um, as you're going now, like, what is your default drive? Is it still that I'm not enough and I want to prove this based upon my childhood, or what's really driving you now?
I have a lot less drive. I would say I've been kind of auditing this, and I think a lot of it's just surrendering outcomes. But I would say my drive is more focused around the accountability of showing up for everybody that's on the team, or
Mm,
everyone in my life. It's more so of I need to continue to lead by example. That's always been my leadership style. Like I'm never going to ask my team to do things that I haven't already done at a high level. I'm just not. So I think that's really what the drive is now, is integrity to self. It's just, if you can, you must. And when I see a path, like we have to go.
I love that. I would agree. Mine's very similar. Like getting to be that beacon for other people, I feel like motivates me. Is it's mine, kind of like what we are talking about. Like by taking care of myself, I know that I can impact so many other people, but I need them to be able to push myself. It's like an addictive loop almost.
Yeah, I mean the best way to show the sales team that you can make a certain amount of sales in a week is to go do it. Like that's how I always did it. It's like, hey, I'll teach you everything, and I can teach you because I was in the trenches at the deepest level, and that's how I formulated all of these things for you to take this blueprint and go do it. And then to see other people take your blueprint, your systems, run with it and implement it, even though it's like 1 out of 100. Like when you're recruiting sales teams, it's just brutal on the turnover and the amount of people that actually stick with it until like it works, few and far between. But I just don't get discouraged by the odds and percentages of outcomes anymore. I mean, I did a long time ago, but now it's like I've just had certain experiences where if I had quit, like I was delusional to the point that I was never going to quit. And that's why the thing eventually happened.
Yeah. Do you think that it was necessary, that that's the only way that you could have done it?
I don't think so. I think if I'm being unbiased about it and truthful, I probably should have changed what I was doing earlier, gone into a more lucrative vehicle. Once I started to realize things, like if you're in sales and you have to eat what you kill every day and there's no residual income, you go to zero every year and your earning potential stays the same. So then it's like, okay, well, why don't I pick a thing that has recurring revenue? So I re-baseline every year, like an insurance sales model where, you do get passive income, for your hard work over time. These are little decisions about the vehicle where you could have someone with the same skill set, same work ethic, same everything, and drastically different results. So yeah, I probably should have pivoted sooner.